sitting in your pastor's office, and I was just reviewing some things, and an article popped up on my phone. I'm going to try to, and it just says, wow, it gives a little context to what we're going to talk about for a few moments today on this Baccalaureate Sunday. It was focused on 4 years later after the death of Mike Brown in Ferguson. You all remember that name? He was killed at the hands of a cop, Darren Wilson, who was not indicted. It'll be about 4 years come the first week of August. And that community is still lying in ruins. That community is still lying in ruins, like the ancient text. Still lying in ruins. The more things change, dearly beloved, the more they remain the same. That text has been was read by our young sister. Thank you so much. Thank you. You did a marvelous job. Thank you so much. I just want to focus on this particular verse, 2 verses here. Chapter 2 of Nehemiah. Go back, as the pastor has indicated, to read it all. It said, in the month of Nisan in the 20th year, I gave him the wine. He said, why does your face look so sad when you are not sick? This can be nothing but sadness at heart. He said, may the king live forever. How can I not be sad and depressed and heartbroken when the city where my ancestors lie, Ferguson, Harlem, Montclair, is now in ruins? How can I not be upset? So just for the next few moments, I want us to pray now as we consider this topic on this Education Sunday, Graduation Sunday, Uplift, whatever you want to call it. Put a pin on it. Educate to elevate. Educate to elevate. Let us pray now. God, our mother, yeah, that's really what you are. And our Father, our comfort and compassion, we give you thanks for life and for the privilege to gather here in the house of prayer, for another opportunity to come together and worship you in spirit and in truth. But on this special Sunday, we set aside to celebrate, to rightfully acknowledge these graduates who will continue to go on and soar to the heights of their possibility with the support and the affirmation and the love and the prayers, not only with their knees, but with their feet, the prayers of this community called in church. We ask it for the next few moments. You make us uncomfortable, make us unsettled, that even if no one runs around this morning, if no one falls out, we still know that we've experienced you. And empower all of us, not only those who graduate, but all of those who seek to walk closer with you and who are concerned about the pulse, the temperature of America right now, and how we are poised through our faith and our intellect to dismantle systems of inequality just as Jesus did, such that we might be able, through courage, to leave the world better than we found it. So help us in these moments to grow in your grace, to stand taller, to find some meaningful ways through our own introspection to use our education not only for self-purposes, but to advance those around us and those who are living in ruins. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus. For Jesus' sake, we pray. Amen and amen. I'm grateful to have all to be with all of you today. And I'm not going to be up here too long because I know you might kick me out and push me back over the river to Harlem. I understand that. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. We want you all to enjoy it. I read this article, and because one of the first things it said was that after Mike Brown was killed, lynched, there was all of this attention that was poured into the city of Ferguson, but particularly a community that was lying in ruins. There was destruction and pain and depression. $25,000 was the annual income of most folks living in that community. Most folks did not have jobs. Young sisters and brothers, most of them were not afforded an opportunity to go off to college. They didn't have a lot of people like Union Church pushing them to do so and to stay there. The community was in trouble, and it still is today. $25,000 is the annual income of folk in that community. And then it reminded me of something else I saw just not long ago in the New York Times. You know, reading is really fundamental for all of us. It says that 1.5 million African American men are missing in America. Are you listening? 1.5 million. Now, I didn't make this up. This is information at our own disposal. 1.5 million brothers misplaced, incarcerated, or killed, not because they had a heart attack, not because of cancer, but living under systemic oppression, marginalization. And I thought about this. I said, Lord have mercy. Ferguson is a microcosm. Ferguson represents every community in America. Ferguson stands as a fact, as a testament to what we need from young people who are making their way up in the world, to work and to witness and to use their education for a cause that's bigger than you and me. Now, what's interesting about this text? One of the reasons that Nehemiah stands out in contrast to all of these other individuals in the good book, in the Old Testament, is because Nehemiah is a layman. Probably worked for the MTA. You know? He was a struggling brother. You know? He didn't have a lot. But he had the ear to the king. Let's pray it was Obama and not Trump. He had the ear. I'm a more political preacher than some, so bear with me. He had the ear to the king. And here he is in his 70th year. He is the cupbearer. Now, some of you all graduating now. You're going through 4 years of college, and you're going up through high school, and you're graduating, you're matriculating. Someone say, well, brother, black man, why are you telling me about a senior citizen who's on AARP, who should be somewhere on the Jersey Shore, enjoying his life, retirement, sipping on a non-alcoholic beverage? Why are you telling me about this 70-some-year-old man in context to me when I'm moving on with my life? I'm a young person, 20 years old. I'm 15 years old. I'm 18. I'm just graduating college. Why are you telling me about this guy? Well, let me give you a little more information about him. He had the ear to the king. And, he must have always been proud and strong. But the king had developed such a positive rapport with this brother, probably from Mount Clay, East Orange. That's where he was from. He might have been uptown with me. But wherever he was, this was a strong man. And he would never show too much emotion on his face. The world teaches brothers in particular, strong man. Don't succumb to your pressure. Hide it. But we need to move away from that for a little. And there he is. He has all of this disdain on his face. And the king says, brother, what's wrong with you? Why do you look so sad? Why are you disgruntled? What's up, man? He said, how can I not be sad? From Baltimore, Ferguson, Harlem, East New York, Newark, all are lying in ruins. How can I not be sad when I'm here and all of my kinfolk who are with me don't even have access to their children because the federal government, the other king, has snatched their children away. How can I not be sad at heart? But you know, I like this about Nehemiah, because Nehemiah did not pray on his knees. He prayed with his hands and with his mind. All of us with a modicum of intelligence. You can have an undergraduate degree, master's degree, PhD, no D. It does not matter. It does not matter. All of us who are people of the darker hue, who have been burnt and kissed by the sun, as Langston Hughes would say, can understand with certainty that the communities that we all stem from are just like the ancient city that our brother has come from. They're lying in ruins. From a psychological, from an educational, from a financial, from an employment, from a spiritual standpoint. Our communities are now in ruins. So brother and sister, and everybody in here, even if you are not a graduate, I'm asking you today, no matter where you are in life, or if you are in the Januaries of your days or the Decembers of your days, do you have the courage to model Nehemiah? With your life and your work and your witness, as you said, to be of service. Nehemiah. There he is. There he is. So he left, almost 80 years old. And he's here, and he finds out that Jerusalem is lying in ruins, and he makes his way on. So you're trying to figure out what's the text here? Why does it connect? In 1898, let me make it a little more, bring it a little closer to home. Not that much, just a little. 1898, a long time ago, but not really that long. There was a man by the name of William Edward Burgott Du Bois. Anybody heard that name before? W.E.B. Du Bois was the first African American not to graduate Harvard College, but to graduate with a Ph.D. in sociology. He created at the turn of the 20th century a manifesto. Has anyone ever read The Souls of Black Folk? All of you all who are graduating this time, when you have a little easier on the summer, instead of us focusing a lot on Instagram, like Twitter, I'm going to do yourself a favor. Read this. Read The Souls of Black Folk. Just take your time. Take a little time to read it. I don't care what age you are. Read The Souls of Black Folk. It's relevant today just as much as it was 100 years ago. And then you can post about it on Instagram. Du Bois said he created this manifesto, if you will, talking about the talented 10. Some of us have heard about it. Some of us might want to put ourselves in that category. He's saying that everybody who is fortunate enough to graduate Rutgers or Howard or Hampton or A&T or Bennett or Spelman or Norfolk State or any of the CUNY schools has a responsibility. After they finish college or trade school or whatever else they were doing, they are to return back to the hood. Return to their churches. Return to their neighborhoods to make sure they use that education to help uplift those they left behind. Listen. what he said. But he found out that, Negroes can be very selfish. Maybe that's where the selfie term has come around. They didn't have selfish during divorce time, but, he kind of laid the foundation to tell us how selfish we could be. He was like, wait a minute. All of these folks who are graduating these schools are going off, and once they leave, they ain't coming back, excuse my English, but they don't give a lolly-die about who's left behind, who's struggling, who's marginalized, who's on the peripheral, who needs some help. And everybody in here knows some young brother or sister who needs us, some older person who needs us. Am I alone when I say that? And so he said that, look, he found instead of people being sacrificial and selfless, they were they were focused on their own selves. And so he said, look, he turned that thing back around. He said an education should allow you to do three things. I hope you remember this, because this is just as important as the gospel. In my mind, it is the gospel. He said an education should do three things. It should lift, elevate your character, increase your knowledge, and then your earning potential. Let me say that again. An education should do three things. Build your character, your knowledge, and what you get in your little paycheck you're bringing home. But he said too often people of us, because maybe we need to go back and look at post-traumatic slave disorder. We have put, instead of us focusing on the character and the knowledge, we only focus on what? Wait a minute. The money. It trumps knowledge and character. So wherever you are, and whatever you're going to do in life, and wherever you set out to go, remember that yes, it's important you get a paycheck. Yes, it's important that you create your own, so you don't have to be relying on somebody else always for. That's something we don't teach enough. But while you are doing it, make sure that the knowledge you receive and the character you have and the integrity that you have is just as important, if not more. Because you're seeing on what's going on around you right now that a lot of folk in high office get fat paychecks are doing everything they can to keep people that look like you and me on the bottom of society. So we're talking about Nehemiah who built the wall. I'm going to charge you all, don't worry about building a wall. Tear the wall down. Let's build, wait a minute. Nehemiah built the wall, but I'm challenging everybody in here to build a mirror. I don't need us to build a wall. Let's build a mirror so we can see how ugly America really is. Build up a wall so we can really take a good look at ourselves. Nehemiah made his way on. The king allowed him to go. And some of the first people he encountered were Tobias and Sanballat. That's in the text. Tobias and Sanballat. Well, those names may not sound familiar, but let's kind of boogie-woogie on up the road a little bit. Make this contemporary. Does Donald Trump sound familiar? Does Stone sound familiar? Roger Stone? Does Jeff Sessions sound familiar? I could keep, but I'm going to stop right there. That's enough. That's enough right. Well, to all of these people who subscribe to the blissfully confused notions of these people sound familiar, who put these people in office, not so much Trump that I'm worried about as the old people who put him there. What they represent when Trump is long gone, we'll still have these people walking around us, working with us, telling us how impactful they think Obama was 8 years in office, but hate people of color, particularly the black man. So all around you, when you leave out of this comfort and security, you're going to be confronted by people like Sanballat and Tobiah. But no matter what the case was, Nehemiah was compassionate because he could have stayed at home. But he saw what the issue was, and he left, and he did not do the work alone. He rallied all type of people around him, people of different colors and different ethnicities and different predilections and different faiths. But he brought them all around to gather together in common purpose. They were, if you would like me to say, disciples. So once you go out into the world, you're going to need people. If you're really committed to something, yeah, you got to be committed to your job. But if you're going to be committed to building your community, empowering your people, building strong families, breaking down systems of inequality that keep us at the bottom, then you cannot do this work alone. You with me, sister? You cannot operate in a container. It can't all be about you. You've got to have other people, just like this committee is doing. Different personalities, different pre-elections, different talents and skills, but they gather together because they want to empower you so you can move on to soar to the heights. So there he is. That's one thing. He was compassionate. You got your education now. You're going to continue to get it. How compassionate are you? Benjamin Elijah Mays was a very distinguished college president and Baptist preacher from 96, South Carolina. He was the mentor of Martin King. He was there from 1940 to 1967. He mentored a lot of people. He's one of the great models in my life. He was a college leader, but he really empowered young brothers, particularly who walked through Morehouse. He said, what will they say about you when you leave college? Write it now. But he also said something else. He said, I am disturbed, I'm uneasy, because I have no guarantee, listen to this, that when I train a man's mind, let's say men and women, that when I train an individual's mind, I'm also training their heart. That when I train them, and when I train them and challenge them to seek knowledge, they'll also seek goodness. There isn't a necessary correlation between the knowledge you have and the goodness you should be to someone else. And never, you all sing hymns in this church, and I like that because I'm a lover of great hymns. Never forget, I'm glad about it, brother. Never forget that great hymn that said, if I can help somebody, not with my education, just but help somebody. Okay, listen, as I pass along, cheer somebody with a word or a song. Sow somebody. Brother, you're struggling now. You're messing up. You're going down the wrong track now. Pick it up now. Brother, you're traveling wrong. Then you're living. It didn't say what education you had. It said your living shall not be in vain. There's got to be an intersectionality. There's got to be some parallels between the knowledge you earn and the goodness that should be inside of you. And if nobody else should help you, families, you push your young people to be good people, to be people of character and integrity. Church, you pray with them, you love them, you wrap your arms around them. You must tell them that it's not an education alone that they will need to survive in this mean, cold, hard, cruel world. But whatever you get, you got to be like Nehemiah. You got to be compassionate. A compassionate leader. A leader that cares. And that's my second point. The second point is be a leader who cares. The first is compassionate. The second is be a leader who cares. He rallied all of those people around him. He rallied these people around him. You're going to need people in your areas of employ. You're going to need people around you, and you're going to have to lead them. Not with your title, not with your credentials, but you lead them by helping them see the light that is inside of themselves. Yeah. That's what your pastor does every Sunday, not going up here saying, I'm Dr. Sig. No, but he's helping you, his parishioners, see the light inside of himself. And once preachers in America, particularly black preachers, can stop focusing so much on themselves and help to empower people to see the light inside of them, maybe we won't see so much, because once you focus so much on yourself and your own light, I'm being violent and I'm helping to be a part of your own oppression. He led people. Nehemiah led people. He was a leader who was compassionate. Let me give you another story very quickly. There was, in Washington, D.C., there was a man that we do not hear about too often in life now. He's been long gone. He died in 1950. His name was Charles Hamilton Houston. Don't forget that name. As a matter of fact, look up this book when you get time called Root and Branch. The history of Charles Hamilton Houston and Thurgood Marshall and the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus the Board of Education. Nobody in here would be, mostly anybody who was born after 1945, 1950. Everybody in here who was born after that year was impacted by Brown versus the Board of Education. Topeka, Kansas. Linda Brown just died this year. But if it were not for Charles Hamilton Houston laying the groundwork, it wouldn't have happened. Who is he? When we talk about someone who's modeling Nehemiah, who is Charles Hamilton Houston? Well, he was a graduate of Harvard University. He graduated there with a doctorate in juridical science at the turn of the 20th century. He got his undergraduate degree at Amherst College. He was from Washington, D.C. Charles Hamilton Houston was the first African American to sit on the Harvard Law Review. He was the first. It wasn't Barack Obama. It was Charles Hamilton Houston. And sisters and brothers all, when he left Harvard, he went back to Washington, D.C. to help start a practice with his father. This was at the turn about 1920, 21, 22. He did that for some years. In about 1929, this is a long time ago, but it still is relevant today. He met a man by the name of Mordecai Wyatt Johnson. That was the first black man who was the president of Howard University. All of these people, most of us have never heard their names, but they laid the foundation for us. Mordecai Wyatt Johnson said, I need a strong, forceful, intelligent individual to come and help me build up the Howard University School of Law. And he called on Charles Hamilton Houston. What did he do? Charles Hamilton Houston turned that nighttime operation. They said it was so bad there, nobody would call on a Howard Law grad. Excuse me, any Howard grads in here right now. But they said they wouldn't call on any Howard grad, law grad, until he got there to change that situation around. He was like Nehemiah. He invited all these different people, and one day, a young man by the name of Thurgood Marshall from the northwest ghetto of Baltimore, Maryland, sat in his class because he was denied entrance into the University of Maryland's law school. Why? Because he was a person of color. It wasn't that he wasn't intelligent. It wasn't that he didn't have intellectual acuity, but it was the fact that he was black in America in the 1920s. And he sat in that classroom, and Charles Hamilton Houston said to those young budding lawyers the same thing I'm going to say to you today, because it speaks through the chasm of the years. He said to them, even though nobody's going to law, he said to them, listen, your job is not just to be a lawyer and make good money. Your job is not only just to interpret the law, but everybody's job is to be a social engineer. That is to make right the many wrongs that are in society. That's what an education is. To make right the many wrongs with your own faith, with the help of people around you. And the last point of them, I'm done. Nehemiah did something, and I love him for this. Nehemiah committed himself to a cause that's bigger than self. Everybody in here, I love you, but I got to tell you tonight, it's not about you. I'm going to say it one more time. It's not about you. Graduates, it is about you, but it's not about you. It is about you, but it's not about you. We get so consumed with how many followers we have on Instagram. We get so consumed in church life. What color we're going to wear, what our motto will be for this month, or pastor didn't acknowledge me on this Sunday, or we get so consumed with the cars that we drive, or someone acknowledging the credentials that we have, or we get so consumed with what sorority or fraternity we're a part of, that it overwhelms us to the extent that we can't see what's going on around us. We get so consumed and so colored by things that are only focused on self. But Nehemiah said, oh, no, bump that, man. I'm going back to the hood. I've got some work to do. No, brother. I've got to move back to where I came from because my people are suffering. The world needs me. The world needs my intellect. The world needs my compassion. The world needs my faith. Where's your faith? And does your faith push you through your knowledge? Nehemiah pushed himself to go build this wall. And guess what? Nobody gave him an award. Nobody named a big monument after him. Nobody set up a scholarship fund in his name. He didn't go around wearing fancy suits all the No. He was just committed to something bigger than himself. And he said, I'm going to use my life. I'm going to use my knowledge. I'm going to use my native skills to leave the world better than I found it and pave the way for somebody coming behind me. That's what an education does. Matter of fact, that's what your faith should do. Compel you to move and pave the way for somebody coming behind you. You know what's so interesting about this? Put it all together. In August the 28th of 1963, that was the day before Du Bois' birthday. He died, Du Bois died the day before that, in 1963, 55 years ago. On that hot morning, down in Washington, D.C., Bayard Rustin, who was one of the architects of the March on Washington, walked out and said, I wonder if anybody's going to show up today to this march. I wonder if anybody's going to show up. They're hot. They came from, they rode bikes from Ohio. They took buses from Boston. They came from all across America down to the Mall on Washington to pave the way. They thought they were down there fighting for jobs and justice. And heck, here we are 55 years later, still fighting for jobs and justice. But they laid the foundation up there, down there rather, because 40-some years later, they laid the foundation for the first black man to walk into the White House. That's what they didn't know it. They didn't know it. They didn't know they were laying the foundation. They just did it because it was right. Here in this text, Nehemiah built this wall. You all going to build a mirror. He built this wall. And guess what happened long after Nehemiah was gone? Just like Obama got elected long after King was gone. He walked some years later, a 12-year-old little boy. This is where it all ties up. A 12-year-old boy from Nazareth walked through those city walls. He was there going to his first bar mitzvah. And he's walking with his parents. And he got lost. And his parents didn't know where he was. You know what? They didn't know he was at Union Baptist Church. This 12-year-old little boy was talking to the officers and the pastor and the lawyers and the scribes. He was there, and his mother looked all over for him everywhere and said, "Where are you?" And then he wasn't disrespectful, but he had to remind his mama. He said, "Look, Mama, did you not know? Do you have amnesia? Have you forgotten? What's up, Mom? Listen, did you forget that the Lord has called me, my Father has called me to be about my Father's business?" That same 12-year-old little boy walked through those walls that somebody he did not even know built on his behalf. And look at what that little boy did as a result of him walking through those walls. You know what he did? He went up and he fought the powers that be. He healed the sick. I passed by, Mount Hebron and one of these avenues over here, Mount Hebron, and I forgot the avenue. Over there was a big cemetery. As I'm coming over here this morning, he went out into that cemetery and made it look like plowed fields. He lifted up his friend Lazarus. He attacked and challenged the powers that be. He turned over the tables. This is what this little boy was able to do because somebody built something that he could walk through. So everybody in here right now, whether you're a graduate or not, what are you building for the next generation coming behind you? What are you building? I don't care how if the building is just means bringing them to church. Building means teaching them their history. Building means putting a few dollars in their pocket. Building means letting them know how beautiful and how proud they should be to be black with their thick lips and curly hair. Building means calling them once they go off to college, checking on them, telling them the union loves you. We care about you. That's what building means. Building means when you see an injustice, you don't stand on the sidelines and just say, "Lord, have mercy." You get in the fight. You get in the fight. So, that 12-year-old little boy grew up in wisdom and in stature. They whipped him. They killed him. They hung him on a tree. But he did get up with power. Everybody in here right now, nobody is Jesus. But we all believe in the power of the resurrection. And so because of that, you have the courage with your compassion, with your intellect, with your leadership, with your credentials to help resurrect somebody like Jesus did. You can resurrect somebody who needs you. That is the purpose of an education, to resurrect a community, to lift it up, and to leave the world better than you found it. I want to challenge you today with love. That's all I wanted to say to you. To model Nehemiah, to think about a leader who is committed to a cause bigger than themselves, to be compassionate about it, to know you're going to have some trials and tribulations and some sandbites and toe ballots that will get in your way, but you've got to remember that with God, all things are possible. And the last thing is to pave the way for those who come behind you. I wish you all the best.